For 37 years, the Ponderosa Ranch made a lot of money. Then everything changed in 2004. A millionaire bought it, and now no one else can get in. He found something on that 570-acre farm that was never meant to be found. When their $50 million offer was turned down, government leaders were crushed. People jumped in to help save what they could before it was too late. They found things in a TV theme park that didn't belong there. Now, urban hikers risk getting caught to find out what's left. There are secrets in the ruins that show why the ranch had to go away. In the late 1950s, Bonanza, a Western show about the Cartwright family and their huge Ponderosa ranch near Lake Tahoe, became a big hit on TV. It began in 1959 and ended in 1973. At its peak in the mid-1960s, about 19 million people watched each show. For 8 nights a week, people gathered around their color TVs to watch the deep green trees and the blue water of Lake Tahoe. Since NBC was owned by RCA, it pushed the show to boost sales of color TVs. Soon, people all over the country were seeing that burning picture of the 1,000-square-mile Ponderosa, which goes from Tahoe to Virginia City. Fans began to wish they could step into the scene because it was so real. Over time, that wish came true. A couple named Bill and Joyce Anderson made it happen. They moved to Incline Village in 1962. It was still quiet and mostly empty on the north shore of Lake Tahoe at the time. Bill was helping to build the new town. Because of a loophole in his deal, he got to own more than 400 acres of wooded land near the lake. The world Bonanza used for Cartwright was almost the same size and in the same place. When the show first started and fans saw a map that showed the Ponderosa almost right where the Andersons lived, people came to their door to ask about them. They asked where the real Ponderosa was. Bill was interested, even though the Ponderosa on TV was made up, because the question was real. There were more tourists, and people kept asking questions. The Andersons quickly saw that they were in what someone later called a money opportunity. In 1965, they got in touch with NBC and the show's creator and producer, David Dortort. They told him about their big idea. They planned to make their land into a real Bonanza theme park. At first, NBC executives were shocked that Bill had started calling his property Ponderosa Ranch without permission. Bill himself admitted that this made the company a little scared. The idea had too many good points to be thrown out, though. The actors and Dortort all agreed that it could be a huge hit for everyone. NBC licensed the show to the Andersons and even gave them plans for the country house that was built on set so they could make an exact copy. After a while, Bill wrote that he had never tried to be anything but a trader. His goal was to make money, which he did. Bill's 570-acre spread of trees and big rocks that looks out over the lake was built on starting in 1966. He looked for old wood so that he could build Ben Cartwright's country house just like it looked on the show. He and Joyce made a small town in the Western style on top of the hill above their barns. It was shaped to look like an 1860s Virginia city. NBC sent the Andersons set ideas and props, and in exchange, they held promotional events. Ads were shot at the ranch and at the copy of the Silver Dollar Saloon with the main cast, which included Lorne Greene, Dan Blocker, and Michael Landon. With each show, the line between the TV world and this growing park got a little less clear. The Ponderosa Ranch theme park was opened by the summer of 1967. The land became a place where people could walk when the gates were opened. A lot of people came out on the first day of July to see the Cartwrights' world come to life. One report said the park had a full-size copy of the house and barn, as well as a set of Virginia City. A lot of people came in. In that one summer, thousands of people came. They were greeted by a wooden sign with a painting of the Cartwrights all together. At first, Pernell Roberts wasn't on the sign because he had left the show in 1965, but later, when Adam Cartwright was shown in reruns, he became more popular. He was added to the park's art and products. Going into the Ponderosa Ranch during its best years felt almost like a dream. After going through the gates, it felt like you had walked right into an episode of Bonanza. Fans thought that the ranch would look just like the world of Cartwright in the 1860s, and the feeling stayed with you as you went from room to room. The country house came first. It just stood there, like a memory that had been taken off the screen. As soon as you walked inside, the sights surrounded you. The stone fireplace in the living room looked like it had been there for decades, keeping the Cartwrights warm. In the study, Ben's desk was ready. The kitchen looked like it was ready for a family meal. That warm feeling was even in Hopsing's kitchen. The guides would smile and say that the windows on the second floor were fake and that the beds that were supposed to be there never existed. Those were tricks used on the Hollywood set. They even showed where the hidden cameras used to be and how some walls would open up while they were shooting. Diana Hork, who used to work there, remembers how guests leaned in close as she told each secret. After that, they saw the props. The green tweed jacket of Little Joe was hanging there quietly. The tall brown suede vest of Posse was lying close. Fans knew who they were right away and whispered as if they were in a museum of their youth. Just a few steps away, everything changed. Virginia City stood there, as if time had folded back on itself. A dirty bar, a small jail, a bank, and some old shops. In the show, it took 2 hours on horses to get to town. It was right next to the ranch yard. Tourists didn't say anything bad. They went into the Silver Dollar Saloon by accident and ordered sarsaparilla while the walls tried to make them think they were in the show. Then someone would pull them toward the scary house on B Street, which made it feel even more like a ghost town. And just as things were getting quiet, the sound of a gunshot came from a fake stunt show. A lot of fake bank robberies and fights broke out between the actors. Little kids clung to their folks. People over 18 laughed and yelled at the cowboy chaos. A little further on, people knelt next to a long gold digging trough and dug through the sand to find shiny bits of gold they could take home. People kept those small gold pieces for years, even though it was easy. It felt like a story just to get to the door. People left their cars by the highway and rode in horse-drawn wagons that slowly went up to the ranch. When thieves broke into the wagon and tried to rob everyone, the ride could get wild. People laughed, screamed, and held on to their hats. People who really wanted to feel like they were in the West could pay extra to ride the show horses on the trails. NBC kept the horses on site to save money on trip costs, and it worked out great for the guests. The famous hayride breakfast was served early in the morning. Families in a wagon were hungry as they shook their way to a field where pancakes were being cooked until no one could eat anymore. Someone who went in 1992 still wrote about how they only went for the all-you-can-eat pancake feast and the hay wagon ride. For a morning, it let people act like they were cowboys. Food and gifts kept the dream alive. People were amazed by the huge Haasburger that was served at the bar grill. It was a half-pound monster. In the 37 years that the park was open, more than 3 million Hormels were eaten. A lot of people took pictures while they tried to climb the big thing. The ice cream shop further down the road served flavors like Cartwright chocolate. Tin cups with family faces on them, frontier outfits for kids, fake guns from the Old West, and the famous Ponderosa map from the opening credits were all sold in the general store. The map felt like gold because it had old signatures all over it. Families wore cowboy hats, toy sheriff badges, and smiled like they were straight from the 1800s as they walked out. Small details made it feel like the place was haunted. There was a small cemetery next to the ranch house with wooden plaques for Ben Cartwright's 3 wives. Though fans already knew that each son had a different mother, seeing this made them remember how deep the story went. As time went on and more Bonanza stars died, more markers showed up. Haas, Little Joe, Hopsing, and even Lorne Greene. Kids stood quietly next to the markers, not sure where the line between making things up and real life started. Horses made of fiberglass stood by the barns and waited for pictures. People got on top and posed to ride like the Cartwrights. To the side was a real wedding chapel that was built in 1871 and later moved to the ranch. It was used for up to 15 weddings a week during its busy times. People picked the Ponderosa as the start of their own stories. All of this hard work was clear when people toured the country house. It was once stated that there were only the living room, dining room, kitchen, and office. The trip didn't last long and the stairs didn't lead anywhere. Fans never said anything, though. They loved being in the room that their favorite figures had made into a storybook world. Diana Hork said that the Cartwright ranch house was always the thing that drew people in. Guides used every little thing that was missing as a chance to teach. The Ponderosa Ranch had a good time in the late 1960s. It was like the whole place was taking a breather after years of cheers and crowds. But things changed when the early 1970s came around. In May 1972, Dan Blocker, who was known as Haas and was a gentle giant, died after surgery. He was only 43 years old. The group and fans were so shocked that no one could hide it. The Bonanza team tried to keep going, though. The next season, they added a young Cartwright cousin and hoped that the old flow would come back. It never really did. The show was over after 14 seasons, in early 1973. All of a sudden, there were no new shows at Ponderosa Ranch Park to keep people interested. A lot of people thought that the whole thing would lose its appeal when Bonanza stopped airing during prime time. One author even said that the land had no longer any reason to exist. Still, it lived. In fact, it breathed for another 30 years. Something softer was what the Anderson family chose. They sold Western junk food and easy fun. Reruns of Bonanza were still shown in 98 countries, drawing viewers from all over the world. Family travelers going through Nevada saw the Ponderosa as a friendly Western town, even if they had never seen a cart ride experience. Nevada's tourist magazine from 1971 said it was a must-see and put the cast on the cover. Kids laughed as stuntmen pretended to fall off of roofs while gunfights were going on. People didn't care if the can-can dancers in the bar did routines from the show or not, they cheered for them anyway. It was a charming place. The view of Lake Tahoe helped. People still came even when their tastes changed. After the fact, Nevada magazine said that some people came to experience the good old days of westerns, while others just came because it was fun. The owners kept making things better in the 1980s and 1990s to keep people interested. They carved a mystery-themed playhouse into the side of a hill. The floors inside were uneven. The lights flickered and the mirrors acted strangely, giving the famous secret spot idea a strange western twist. Additionally, a historical auto show with Model T cars and old stagecoaches was added to the town area. This way, people could experience a walk through both the 1800s and early 1900s. A VHS tour of the ranch showed up in the gift shop in 1999. Family members to take home a narrated tour of the whole land. Pop culture moved on to other things, but the park stuck to its retro roots. It grew to be one of the biggest summer jobs around Lake Tahoe. A lot of teens in the area worked as trail guides or flipped Haasburgers during the summer, and they were happy to wear their cowboy costumes to work. Behind all of this, the people who ran the land were also changes. In 1995, Bill and Joyce Anderson, who had built the whole thing together, split up. Even though everyone got along, it was the end of a long chapter. Bill took a step back in 1996. He was 70 years old and ready to stop working. Which is why he gave the ranch to his kids, Royce and Jelaine, along with Jelaine's husband, David Geddes. It was harder for younger people to get into the tourism field now. There were more and more big theme parks. There were a lot of new big draws in Las Vegas. It began to look old-fashioned for a Western park to not have any high-tech thrills. Fans of Bonanza from the beginning were getting older by the late 1990s, and new viewers often didn't know the Cartwright names. A few fewer people showed up, but it never completely dropped off. Even though Royce and Jelaine were open to new ideas, they tried to keep the ranch's spirit. They even thought about giving the land to the United States. Forest Service had to take it back so it could be a public historical place instead of a private attraction. But the talks went on for years because there were too many forms, delays in getting money, and answers that weren't clear. The business kept running well, though. After the fact, Royce said it was still good at the end. And there was a strange event in 2004. It turned out to be one of their best seasons ever. As the year came to a close, Royce said, "This is the biggest year we've ever had." During the same summer, stories started to spread. Some people said the land might be sold. Fans became tense. They wrote notes. They put together papers. They begged the Andersons not to shut the gates. In a statement, the family said that their children had chosen it was time to move on after years of trying and succeeding. They thanked the people and listened to the pleas from all over the world. But the real reason for the choice was easy. The land was now worth a lot of money. There was an offer the family couldn't refuse. There was news in July 2004 that David Duffield, a tech billionaire and co-founder of PeopleSoft who lived in Incline Village, would buy the land. Government groups that wanted to buy the land to protect it were shocked. They had more than $50 million set aside for a public buy, and they planned to keep hiking trails, open space, and some parts of the park for visitors. Though, Duffield's offer was secret, quick, and a little more expensive. The 570 acres were said to be worth about $55 million. It made good business sense for the Anderson family. David Geddes said that the government plan seemed too hard to understand and unclear, while Duffield was ready to act right away. Still, the moment felt heavy. A government worker in Nevada said that the state team lost badly. They worked hard and spent a lot of time trying to save the land for everyone. Duffield told people in the area that he had no plans to build on the land right away. He said he knew what it meant as a way to get into the group and wanted to stop dangerous building. He did, however, keep people out of the park almost right away. The gates shut for good on September 26, 2004. After 37 years, the Ponderosa Ranch came to an end. That day, Royce Anderson looked out at the crowds and said in a low voice, "It's really the end of an era." It was both happy and sad over the last weekend. A lot of people rushed in to see the Old West one last time. The ranch had 2,200 guests on Saturday, which was the busiest day in September in its history. On the last day, September 26, 2,350 people showed up, which was the most ever in a single day. A lot of them wore cowboy hats or jackets that looked like those worn by Cartwrights. They bought gifts until there were none left on the shelves. Everything went away and turned into shopping bags. There was no more food. We ran out of drinks. Later, Royce laughed and said that the ranch was empty of everything, even beer. Even so, there was a bit of sadness in that laughing. No one wanted to leave when it was time to close. Royce said that people waited near the gate, hoping to be the last ones to leave. Staff had to help them slowly get to the exit. Some people cried. A few took slow pictures. Some said goodbye in whispers. Diana Horth, who had worked there for a long time, remembers that it was a sad day for everyone. She and many other people had thought of the land as a second home. Fans from all over the world wrote about their memories in groups and emails. Some used the theme song from Bonanza. Some people just wrote, "Thank you for the memories." A fan made a petition called Save the Ponderosa, and in just a few weeks, it got thousands of votes. There was no change, but love was clear. David Dortort, who made the show, felt the loss very deeply. He always thought of the ranch as a live link to his work. It was now going away. Commissioner Herb Santos, a die-hard Bonanza fan and Nevada tourist official, said it straight out. Even though the park opened a long time after Bonanza's prime, it was still a huge hit. It was even harder to accept the end after hearing that truth. People no longer cared about the place, so it did not close. Not only did about 250,000 people come in 2004, but it closed during a busy year. In easy terms, Royce said it was time to move on. In 2004, the gates to the Ponderosa Ranch were locked. It was so quiet that it seemed like it wasn't real. The hills with pine trees above Lake Tahoe used to be full of stagecoaches, boots ringing, and families laughing in the sun. Now they were empty. People could no longer get to David Duffield's land because he put up walls and warning signs. No one could go into the Cartwright land that had been home to millions of people. Still, the old park's bones stayed there for a while. Before, the ranch house, barns, bars, and other small buildings were always full of people. Now, they were all empty, waiting for time and weather to do their slow work. The Sierra Nevada winter doesn't wait for anyone. The paint began to break. The wood got wet and split. Roofs were sagging. Without anyone to keep things clean, everything started to break down. People became interested, of course. A few fans sneaked through the woods to get a piece of their youth. People are said to have stolen parts of the Virginia City fake fronts or been trying to take the Ponderosa Ranch sign off its frame. Some people who were breaking the law were caught, but that only made the story spread faster. Soon, urban explorers saw Ponderosa as a secret task to be solved. Someone said in a whisper that the empty town was cursed. Some people said they heard horse hooves on the empty trail or saw the shadow of a man in a big hat leaning on the door of the ranch house at dusk. It could have just been the wind moving the boards around. It could have been a dream. But these new stories fit right in with a place that's all about stories. By the late 2000s, the slow decay was a real problem, and then something strange happened. Duffield didn't take everything apart. He instead asked for help. The Thunderbird Lodge Preservation Society took over and took care of the land like it was an old, fragile attic. Volunteers were careful and took their time. They took away all sorts of signs, trucks, buggies, old cars, and mining equipment. They saved what they could before the weather or thieves destroyed everything. Piece by piece, some buildings were taken apart so they wouldn't fall down. It was the little white church that was one of them. The first time it was built was in 1871. In the 1960s, it was moved to the Ponderosa. It was moved again after the park closed. Volunteers marked each board and lifted each one, and sent it more than 300 miles to Lemuel, where it was remade with the same kind of love. The church had been to a lot of places, but Bill Watson laughed that it still felt like the old days inside. Now, people get married there again, far from Lake Tahoe but still close to the memories the place held. It wasn't like the Cartwright Ranch house was lost either. Watson's team put each log in a container and gave it a number. They want to rebuild it one day. In 2025, those barrels are still not ready because they need money and permission. The dream is still alive, though. Think about going back into that living room, where so many TV shows took place and so many tourists smiled for pictures. It was an amazing feat to save it. Around 2010, most of the land was cleared away. Things that were too dangerous or broken were taken down. The rest of the land went back to how it was before. Take a hike there now and pay close attention. You might see thin lines in the dirt where wheels used to be. Duffield also gave some of the land to a trust to keep it safe. These days, all you can see as you drive up to Incline Village is a locked gate and some trees behind it. The Ponderosa theme park is no longer there, but the place has always had a spell on people. Tin cups, ashtrays, and even those valuable maps with names can be found on eBay. Some of the pieces that were saved can be seen in the Nevada State Museum or in California. People who have been to the place many years ago still talk about it with tears in their eyes. Mary Joanne Paulillo. She used to go there as a child and now works there. Fans always tell her how much the place meant to them. It was easy. It was warm. It felt like home. The idea lives on even though the land is closed. It was in hearts a long time before it was behind locked gates. The story goes on longer. Before anyone else talked about realistic fan experiences, Ponderosa on Bonanza gave them. People could step into a TV world they liked. For baby boomers who grew up watching westerns, the Cartwright Ranch felt like a home away from home. There it was in real life, just like in my mind. Bonanza is still shown on standard channels and online after all these years. It gets found by new generations. Its story is steady and comfortable in some way. When that picture pops up and shows Lake Tahoe, people still wonder if there really was such a place. The answer was yes for almost 40 years. The ranch also helped the local business. Fans took their money and went to hotels and restaurants. Because the name was so powerful, even a Bonanza steakhouse chain sprung up, which had nothing to do with the original but was based on it. The park was also made into a movie. The spot was used in 3 Bonanza TV movies in the 1980s and 1990s. One of the pilots for Bonanza in 1987. Scenes from The Next Generation were also filmed there, but Lorne Greene died before he could return as Ben. Even after the first season finished, the ranch was still a part of the show's world. Then something new happened. A grant was given by the Nevada Commission on Tourism in 2020 to help fix up some of the Ponderosa Ranch in Lemuel. Foundation 36 and the Thunderbird Preservation Team started making plans for an exhibit that would use the original buildings that were saved. It was a simple idea. Fans could walk through the Ponderosa again if it had a new home in the Northeast. The church, the country house, and other buildings would rise again. The point was to honor Nevada's past in movies and TV shows, and let people in the future feel the magic. Mayor Herb Santos said he had always felt bad about closing the park and was glad there was a chance to share the memories again. In the years to come, if everything goes well, people will walk through that familiar ranch house door. They might touch the handle that made someone cry before. They might sit in the chairs of the little church or stand by the fireplace. It won't be Lake Tahoe, but that's where the heart of the place is. Still, for old fans, there's nothing like the quiet air in Tahoe in the morning. The smell of pine filled the streets made of wood. Seeing horses stand by the fence. Those moments are safely stored in my mind. And the truth is that something stays even when buildings fall down or woods take back the land. A line from the show says that home is a safe place to be during any storm. It was that kind of home for many people, a place of safety and imagination. Now that it's faded, it shows us how quickly things we love can disappear if we don't hold on to them. Still, there is a strange beauty in the way things are falling apart. The Wild West that TV made is slowly being taken back by nature. As the story goes on, the sounds of laughing and old cowboy songs carry through the mountain air.